Oh, good. Thank you.
Yeah, we're good to go.
Right. Thank you. Good evening, everyone. I'm Councillor Jocelyn Scutt of West Chesterton Ward, and I'd like to welcome everyone to North Area Committee this evening, the first day of September. And we know that autumn's coming because it becomes dark in the mornings when ordinarily it has been light. So we have a number of councillors present at the meeting this evening, and each of us will introduce ourselves as we come to ourselves. So I'd like to first introduce Councillor Bird, and would you introduce yourself, Councillor Bird? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Scott. My name's Councillor Jerry Bird. I'm Councillor for East Chesterton and County Councillor for Chesterton, and also Executive Councillor for Housing.
Thank you, Councillor Bird. And we are expecting Councillor Sam Carling. I can't see him on at the moment, but when he comes, he will introduce himself.
If I may, Chair, I am here.
Oh, you are here. Oh, I'm so sorry, Sam. I couldn't see you. Please do introduce yourself.
No, that's all right. Yeah, I'm Sam Carling. I'm a City Councillor for West Chesterton as well. And my Wi-Fi is dodgy, so my camera is probably going to be off for most of this meeting, which is probably why Councillor Scott couldn't see me.
We can see you now. Yeah, good. Okay, thank you. And we next come to Councillor Collis. Please, Councillor Collis.
Thank you, Chair. I'm Councillor Alex Collis from King's Hedges. I'm also Executive Councillor for Open Spaces, Sustainable Food and Community Development, and Deputy Leader of the Council. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Collis. And next to Councillor Divkovic.
I'm Eva Divkovic, and I am the City Councillor for Arbury.
Thanks, Eva. And now Councillor Gawthorpe Wood.
Hello, I'm Councillor Jenny Gawthorpe Wood, King's Hedges City Councillor. I'm a backbencher on various committees, but not chair or anything like that. Thank you. I'm going to say hello, Deputy Mayor. Oh, I forgot. How did I forget that? I've got mayoral engagements all next week. I'm not going to forget those. I just wanted to say I'm recovering from a migraine, so I may have to turn the camera off. And if it gets a bit much, I apologise if I do have to leave the meeting. I don't think that will happen, but just in case. Thank you.
Thank you. And now we come to Councillor Carla McQueen. I can't see Carla at the present time. Councillor McQueen will introduce herself when we come to her. Then we've got Councillor Shield. Please introduce yourself, Patrick.
Thank you, Chair. Patrick Shield, one of the Arbury City Councillors.
Thank you. And ordinarily we'd have Councillor Smart, who's one of the King's Hedges councillors, but Councillor Smart is giving an apology for this evening. And then Councillor Swift. Is Councillor Swift there? Councillor Richard Swift. Oh, I can't see him. Well, he'll introduce himself when he comes. Then we have Councillor Tatala Varkey. Councillor Tatala Varkey.
Good morning, Chair. Good morning. Hello. I am Councillor Baiju Titala Varkey, known as Councillor Titala, and I am Chair to Housing Scrutiny Committee.
Thank you, Councillor. And then we have Councillor Todd Jones, but he's also an apology for this evening. He's elsewhere. So now we come to our county councillors, and Councillor Bird has already introduced herself because she's a city councillor also, and Councillor Cox-Condren. She is here with her beautiful blue background wall. Councillor Condren has disappeared. Well, we'll wait for her. She'll come back. She's got a beautiful blue wall behind her. Councillor Gay, Councillor Nick Gay. I'm not sure if Nick's here. Councillor Gay is actually councillor for Market, but a part of the Market Ward is in West Chesterton, Magdalen College, and so Councillor Gay is able to come to our North Area Committee meetings. Councillor Cheney would be here, but she is absent. Councillor Machini is the County Councillor for Kings Hedges and also the Deputy Leader of the County Council. And now Councillor Catherine Ray. You're on mute.
Hi, I'm Kathy Ray. I'm the County Councillor for Castle, and I'm also Vice Chair of Pensions and and on the Environment Committee.
Lovely, thank you. And I see that Councillor Condren, please introduce yourself.
Huge apologies, I disappeared and I'm now on my phone linked in. Good afternoon, good evening. Yes, I'm Councillor Hilary Cox Condren and I'm County Councillor for Arbury. Lovely to see everybody, thank you.
Thank you, Hilary. And so, yes, apologies have been received from Councillor Smart, Machini and Todd Jones. And we have all introduced ourselves apart from those who may be a little late. And we have officers permanently here for this evening. We have the committee manager, James Goddard, who is also the committee advisor, and we have the meeting producer, Boris Herzog. So we're very appreciative that we have James Goddard and Boris Herzog with us. If anybody has any problems hearing me or others throughout the meeting, please alert each of us by typing in the meeting chat function, whilst remembering that the meeting chat function is not private or confidential, and so therefore one must take some care and precaution or in committing oneself to something in the chat. And now we come to business matters. Councillors may recall at the recent annual meeting, it was agreed to continue to run area committees virtually. This means that the committee is precluded from making decisions, but we are allowed to discuss local issues. So we won't be making decisions this evening, but we will be discussing local issues and we'll be hearing from residents on local issues in one of the agenda items, and then of course in questions and public announcements. So copies of the agenda can be found on the City Council's website under committee meetings, minutes and agendas, and this meeting is being broadcast live via the Council's website, and public speakers are reminded that by speaking and appearing in the meeting, you are giving consent to being recorded. The meeting is automatically recorded and will be available via the Council's YouTube pages. The process for each agenda item will be: the relevant officer or member of the public will give a brief introduction to their report, and we'll come to this as we go through the agenda. Councillors and members of the public participating in the meeting will be invited to type to speak in the chat function if they would like to ask a question or make a statement. The committee manager will regularly check the chat function and the Democratic Services email box to see whether any public questions have been received through that facility, and will read these out if they are received. For the councillors and public's comfort, we may call short breaks during the proceedings, and if councillors or members of the public or officers who are on the chat on the facility require a break at any point, please indicate and I will halt proceedings at the next convenient opportunity. So please, before I go to the item on the agenda, I would like to draw councillors and members' attention to, and members of the public, sorry, that the council opened the Grants Gateway on the 2nd of August, and the Grants Gateway is on the council website, and we are seeking applications to the Community Grants Fund, to the Sustainable City Grant Fund, and to the Homeless Prevention Grant Fund. As in previous years, voluntary and community groups are invited to apply for funding from the City Council from this Community Grants Fund. And the aim is to help run projects that will tackle social and economic inequality in Cambridge. And for the 2023-2024 period, a new small grant scheme has been launched to make it easier to access smaller amounts for projects up to £2,000. More details on all three grants funds can be found via the Council's website, Grants and Funding, Cambridge City Council. And a separate note has been published on the meeting webpage should you wish to find and follow the webpage link. Now, moving on to agenda item 2, please could councillors advise if they have any declarations of interest and also identify which item their declaration relates to if they have one. So, does anyone have a declaration of interest? No, I hear no voices to say that there are any declarations of interest. So the next item that we come to are the minutes. And has everybody will have received a copy of the minutes? And is everybody happy with the minutes as they are written, or are there any amendments to the minutes? Can't see anybody anxious for saying that they have amendments to the minutes. So I'll take that as an agreement, that the minutes are a true and correct record of the most recent North Area Committee meeting. And so now we go to items for discussion. And
sorry, Chair, just to clarify, we can't sign minutes off because they're notes of meetings because this isn't a decision-making committee, but I will note you're happy with the content. Sorry to speak over you.
No, that's right. Thanks so much, James, because otherwise we would have had the sticklers for convention, whom we appreciate extraordinarily much, on Twitter or on Facebook telling us that we don't have a right to make decisions and that signing off on minutes is a decision. So we appreciate very much your intervention there, James. Thank you. So we now come to item 4 on the agenda, which is the environmental report. And so may we now have the environmental report, and the officer is present who will present this report. So please.
Yeah, thank you, Chair.
Don?
Yeah,
Here it is. Don Blair, thank you.
My name's Don Blair. I'm the Senior Operations Manager for Streets and Open Spaces. I'm standing in for Wendy Johnson tonight, so I'm not really sure. I mean, everybody's got the report, and the report is for the period February to July 22. I've been asked to give you key points of the report to highlight to the committee. And they are successful clean-up days held at Brackley Close in July and Craythorne Way in March. We are currently starting to plan for days for 23-24. Any suggestions should be sent through to our SOS volunteers email address. Like I say, if anybody's got any locations they'd like to nominate. Community payback are now back up to full speed and taking on projects across the city. Nomination for projects will be reopened in Q3 for 2022-23. And page 23 of the report, fly tipping in King Edges and Arbury remains very high. Enforcement officers patrolling the areas, we've now amended their areas, and more patrols are being focused on these areas starting in September as of, well, today really. So, I mean, like I say, I'm in the reports there. I will take any questions and yeah, try to answer if you want me to.
Right. Thanks so much, Don Blair. Does anyone have a question or a comment for Don in relation to the environmental project? Yes, Councillor Shield.
Thank you very much for the report, Don, and to the list of successful clear up days, I should just add the Cockerell Way. I know it's slightly outside of your February to July bracket, but as it's just very recent, I sort of think of it as part of the summer effort. It went really well. Residents were clearly having an enjoyable day of it as well. And so, yeah, huge. I was at the Autumn Brackley Close, which was also a great success and like a mini festival in some ways. I guess one thing that crossed my mind on the clear up days that I've been along to is your team of hardy work people schlepping quite big pieces of gear away that people don't want anymore, which is fantastic, and people are responding really well and seeing it as an opportunity not to have to pay the bulky waste charge, and also just seeing it as a chance to kind of clear out with in a spirit of solidarity. But I'm just wondering, it's purely an informational thing. Are you finding, and is Wendy finding, that residents are making contact with you, say, a couple of weeks ahead of time to say, oh, hey, I've got a washing machine that I can't get it out on my own, but if anyone could come and help, that would be great? Because I spoke to quite a few people at the Cockerell Way day and also at Brackley Close, where I think the people were wanting to get clobber out, but they hadn't maybe thought ahead. I know that we put round our leaflets and our letters trying to highlight, and I've been around putting up posters as well so that people are aware. But I'm just wondering, are you finding that people are planning enough, or do we need to, as councillors, do we need to push in a friendly way a little bit more from our side to get people to say in advance that they're going to need a big piece of gear taken out of what might be quite a cramped or full up apartment? Or is it just that you're finding on the day? I spoke to Ed a little bit about this. Is it just that you're finding on the day and you just make of you arrive and you make of it what you can?
Well, I think possibly. I think we are sort of trying to be a bit more proactive as the clean-up days sort of mature. I think we are getting better at sort of talking to the residents, but I think at the moment predominantly it is we turn up on the day. If there's some bulky items, we have got the resource then to remove them, but that's something I will take to Wendy and the community engagement team who do the letter drops, just to sort of say that we could sort of include that to say if there's any sort of items that need removing, possibly that we advance notice, then we can remove them before the day and have them have an awareness that they're there, so we can actually take them away on a specialist truck. We've got tail lift trucks, we've got a hire lorry, we've got all sorts of equipment that we could bring to the clean-up day if we needed.
That's fantastic. Thank you, Don.
And now we have Councillor Collis, who's got her hand up for a question. Councillor Collis.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Don. My question is around the clean-up days. Is there scope, or are there plans to add in extra clean-up days? You know, as Councillor Sheila said, they're really popular. They're particularly important here in King's Hedges, particularly, you know, because of the fly tipping issues. So I'm just wondering whether there's any scope to add some extra ones.
Councillor Collis, I'll take that away and speak to Wendy Johnston and come back to you with an answer on that one.
Thank you very much.
Thanks so much. Thanks, Councillor Collis. Any more questions? Oh, yes, Councillor Bird, please.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Don. Yeah, I'd like to know when East Chesterton's going to get a clean-up day. We've not had one for a few years, if I'm correct. And would really like to know, because as you can see by the report, there's a lot of fly tipping, and perhaps if we could get a couple of days in the diary, then perhaps that might help with the stopping some of the fly tipping. Don, thank you.
Councillor Bird, again, I'll take that away and I'll come back to you with locations and sort of possible dates. But just to sort of put it on the table, if you like, because of the fly tip situation. We have almost put together a dedicated team at the moment to respond to the fly tip because it has increased so much. It did get to sort of high numbers, but with the team now dedicated to clearing the fly tips, we've got it down to quite a small number, and we intend to keep it that way. But again, that will work alongside with the cleanup days. So we'll come back to you with a list of cleanup days and then ask about East Cheston.
Thank you. Councillor Beju Tatala.
Yeah, a question. Thank you, Don. A question, kind of a follow-up question from Jerry's point, Councillor Bird's point. See, I have been involved with a few of these fly tipping issues where the not Cambridge City Council, some other city council were, have gone to the stage of prosecuting them. So my understanding and my experience is that they, especially when we look at the economic, the situation, people cannot afford to either hire a car or a van to go to the Milton the recycling area to dispose it. So I would be requesting, I'll be very keen to have a couple of clear dates here in not only in East Chesterton. We have to increase, especially looking at the financial situation, the economic crisis, what we're going to face. We need to have more proactive, where the people, especially the people like the people who can't afford to dispose it in the right place. They have no other option other than just tipping it somewhere and then face the either the penalty penalty tickets or even the court action. So to avoid that situation, would you be considering more cleanup dates where and also we can notify and give sufficient notice to especially this area, King Hedges and Arbury and in East Chesterton, where people cannot afford to clear them on their own. So I would be, as I said, it's a similar question which you have heard from Councillor Baird. So I would be more than happy. I'd be delighted if you could give us some sort of an idea. Is it possible? If possible, how often we could have these kind of clear updates? Thank you.
Again, I'll take that away and discuss that with my community engagement team. But again, also we have the housing section who carry out clean-up days as well. So what I'll do, I'll get together with them and see what is available and come back to you with what days we can additional, if any, if that's okay.
Thank you.
And now we have Ruth Yule, who has a question about a bin that's disappeared. Ruth, I think you can.
Yes, you can hear me now.
We can.
On the corner of where there is the path as part of the Chisholm Trail between the towpath and Fen Road, there were a couple of rubbish bins. They were removed, I think, having been once set on fire and another time thrown in the river. A local resident is putting out bags which are being emptied. But please, can we have proper rubbish bins back? Because it's absolutely inviting a right little mess on the corner because people don't know what to do with their rubbish.
I know the area you're talking about. Yes, two were set on fire, two were put in the cam. I have been onto Green End Road looking around that area, and we are going to put another couple of bins on that location. Hopefully, we're going to get metal and try and get them sort of, if you like, put on a concrete plinth so they're not sort of movable. So we're looking at that. That's on our agenda to put back.
I'm very pleased to hear it. Could I ask that when you do put them in, you put them back from the corner so that they don't foul the sight line? Because as a pedestrian, you take your life into your hands walking up from the towpath towards Fen Road because bikes come hurling round the corner.
Okay, we'll take that into consideration. We'll look at the location of the bins.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good. Councillor Bird, did you have another question? Your hand's up, or are you just keen to have your hand showing.
Yeah, it was about the bins on the towpath. Dom, I did report it quite a few times, if you remember, them being thrown in the river and burnt. So we have been waiting quite a while. We've been waiting a couple of months or more for this to be done. So if it can be done with urgency, that would be great. Thank you.
Thank you. Good. So I think that has everybody who had a question, or did you have another question, Councillor Tatala? Yes, you do. No.
No, I don't. That's a
You don't.
legacy hand. So.
Good. Thank you. So I think then that we've received the report on the environment with appreciation and thanks to Don Blair. I did just have one question, and that is that we know it's been very difficult for the rubbish removal as a consequence of COVID, and there were so many collectors who were ill and the numbers were down. And perhaps if we could just have, could you give just a brief report on whether the numbers are back up and so that the services are restored, or is there still illness and a lack of the numbers that we need to make sure that the bins are always removed in the very efficient way that they're usually removed?
My role for Cambridge City Council is for street bins and the grounds maintenance. I'm not responsible for, if you like, the domestic or commercial waste. That's a shared waste from Waterbeach. From my point of view, through the pandemic, we have had high numbers, and if you like, the levels of attendance was good from the operational point of Cambridge City Council.
Oh, good. Thanks so much, John. And yes, I should have remembered that it's a different category from the category that you're reporting on. But it's good to know that that the numbers were very good in terms of your particular area. Now, I did see somebody else's hand come up, but I think it's disappeared. I know, Councillor Divkovic, did you have a question or did you decide against it? You did have a hand up, and no, she's decided against it. So thanks so much, Don. We say appreciation, thank you, and we look forward to the next report when it's due to come to North Area Committee. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Good. Right, and so next we come to the item number 5 on the agenda. And this item is on the agenda because I would just like to say to everyone who's out there in the Netherlands and so forth, that we put this item on the agenda with 3 members of our residents, 3 residents from various parts of the North Area who are working on or hoping to work on environmental projects. And in my discussion with Councillor McQueen, what we thought would be a good thing is to have an item on the agenda which we do hand over to residents so that residents can tell us what they're up to. And our hope is that that will mean that more residents will become engaged with North Area, and that when residents talk about their projects, this time it happens to be about environmental projects, that may engage other residents who then are driven to initiate similar projects or want to become engaged in the projects that are reported on by residents here. So we come to this part of the program, which is North Area Residents' environmental projects, and we have 3 speakers, 3 residents. We have Charles Hattersley, who set up a wonderful project together with other residents on Ferry Path, and it's the Ferry Path Biodiversity Project in the De Freville area of West Chesterton. And then we'll have Becky Allen, who will speak about her wish and the wish of other residents of Beaver Road to work on their taking care of the verges and the trees and the biodiversity in that road, Beaver Road. She wants to talk about how she would like to see that project going forward. And then we'll have Lillian Runblad, who will talk about the Mayfield Green project. The Mayfield Green is a lovely piece of green space with trees and grass near Mayfield School. So, Charles, I see that you're there, Charles Hattersley. I'll hand over to you for you to speak to us about what's happening in Ferry Path and your efforts at biodiversity, trees, bushes and general glory on Ferry Path leading down to the River Cam. Thanks, Charles.
Okay, good evening there, everybody. I will share with you in a minute the presentation that we put together when we addressed the council, county council and the city council to get this up and running. Our first connection was with our local councillor, who was Damien Tunnicliffe at the time, and he sort of showed us the way to go, if you like, into the system. We then worked out the vagaries of city council and county council and who does what to whom and how. And I think we maybe even helped them with some of their communications with each other, I like to think. So let me just share this, and hopefully the presentation will come up, because it really talks for itself. And then I will, is that beginning to happen?
Charles, yes, we can see it. It looks lovely. Yep.
Is that in, I'm not sure it's in presentation form. Let's just get, yeah, there we go. So the background is really that as Neighbourhood Watch coordinator for this particular few streets, we were seeing down at the end of Ferry Path, particularly down towards the river, what we call the landing area, a lot of antisocial behaviour, broken bottles, needles, and all sorts of things, that it was very overgrown. So the first thing that happened was we became a sort of guerrilla gardening group. Then when it became plain that, you know, we could actually do better, then particularly Steve Cheek and Miranda Ponek, who were very active in this and very skilled at putting presentations together, if you like, and this presentation is part of that. So, and the other people there are other friends and residents. This is how it was at a given point in time. It must be about 5 years ago, although the guerrilla gardening started long before that, when we were planting hollyhocks and things in cracks in the pavement, and generally they became a nice part of the area. I think it's fair or worth saying that Ferry Path is a path and not a street. And I know Becky has been talking to me, as she's also involved with Neighbourhood Watch, about Beaver Road. The advantage that Ferry Path has is that really, apart from the endless stream of Deliveroo and God knows who, it is basically a footpath, and a very nice wide footpath, which is, you know, a big feature in itself. So it makes it easier to do things with. So 2020 view there, we talked about it in contrast with other streets or paths of a similar nature, and typically they were all wider than your average pavement, but Ferry Path is even wider than that, so we had scope to do things. The bottom end of Ferry Path, which leads down to the river, and there's a fine view of the Fort St. George from there, and it's actually quite a pleasant place to be, but it wasn't pre-2020. This is an aerial view from Google Streets of where it is, and you can see Gonville and Keys Boathouse, and at the bottom of the picture, the Fort St. George. And the issue was really, in my view anyhow, as Neighbourhood Watch, driven by the fact that it was not a very nice place to be in a very lovely area. So just running through these quickly, because you can have a look at them, but the presentation that Steve and Miranda put together, with talking with all of us, involved what we might do in the various beds, and it was fairly well detailed. Most of that went in. Some have survived, others and some haven't. And if you see there 3 pear trees and 3 Persian ironwood trees, they had their own bed. The county council came and dug the beds for us and filled them, unfortunately, with clay, which was a bit of a boo, and managed to avoid the Cambridge University fibre network in the process. So that was a great success. And this was the result. The various beds, there's 1, 2, 5 beds on the main footpath bit, and then the bit down to the river. And the top left-hand picture shows that one of our neighbours very generously replaced her aging fence with a brand new fence, which really has given the area a lift, all at her own expense. So this is the bit down to the river. It's at the moment looking very frazzled. We made a decision not to start watering it because it was an endless task well into the future, though a little bit of water every now and again has helped. So this was really the outcomes that came out of it, and particularly I would say that the last 4 bullet points there are, apart from the occasional drug deal, which those of us who are familiar with what drug dealing looks like, it's really now a very pleasant place for anybody, including tourists and visitors and people walking around with iPhones in front of them trying to work out where they are. And we often usher them down towards the river. And this is a list of the people who we engaged with, or the departments and areas. And there is a list of very helpful people within those departments who were very supportive. So I think that's enough. If there are any other questions, I think there's no other point that I wanted to make at this point.
Thanks so much, Charles. That's really lovely. There's time to say one question to Charles on his presentation, then we'll go on to Becky and with a question, and then Lillian with a question, and then we'll come back so that questions can then go to Charles, Becky and to Lillian. But does anybody have a question to Charles at this point? I actually just do have one, Charles, 2 actually. May we keep the PowerPoint that you've so kindly presented, so that if there's anybody interested, we could pass it on to them, because they may like to look at the resources that you provided, who you went to, city, county.
You certainly can, and actually I've shared it with the Neighbourhood Watch PR department, because Neighbourhood Watch came, in our area, Cambridgeshire, were also wanting to promote it, if you like, as being a way of involving people with Neighbourhood Watch. So absolutely.
That's lovely. Thanks so much, Charles. Well, now we'll move to Becky. Becky lives in Beaver Road and would like to ensure that the residents of Beaver Road can take over responsibility for verges and trees and so on. And Becky we'd like to hear from Becky about what her plans would be, and if there have been any difficulties in presenting the plan and so on. So over to Becky. Thanks.
Thanks, Jocelyn, a great deal for inviting me to talk, and it's really nice to see Charles presenting on what's been such an inspirational local project. It's given us all a great deal of pleasure, particularly over the last couple of years when we've had to kind of look locally, really, for a lot of pleasure outdoors on our doorstep. Like Charles said, we before COVID, a series of incidents on the lane that runs along the back of Beaver Road and Humberston Road, Love Lane or Lovers Lane, a series of incidents which still happen. In fact, it was cordoned off this morning with police investigating it as a scene of crime. I don't know yet what happened. But we've had break-ins down there, we've had arson and fly tipping, and really a lot of drug dealing and injecting in a lane that, you know, when I was a child would have been a great place to play. And I don't want to be too nostalgic about this, but so we had some discussion among the neighbours, and also with a fairly large meeting with the local police and local councillors above the Boathouse pub. And at that point, I started to think what we might do with the lane, which is in shared ownership between the flats opposite and all the residents that back onto the lane. So it's quite complicated in terms of its ownership. But I have seen in other areas, including Manchester and York, where I work occasionally, that lots of environmental improvements really do help to reduce crime and antisocial behaviour, and that's certainly what's been seen on Ferry Path. And there's plenty of evidence that taking that kind of approach works from the Government What Works network. And at that point we stalled a bit, and then during COVID things kind of revived as the Neighbourhood Watch WhatsApp group became a focus for residents to support each other during COVID. So we've got quite an active Neighbourhood Watch group now. And so when I read about the Be Friendly Street scheme, I thought that was something that I would try and express the street's interest in, which I did. And then when I shared it, my kind of desire to do that with neighbours, there was quite a lot of pushback, and mainly that pushback was because I'd been told by the council that the expectation was that at least 50% of residents would have to be active members of the SOS volunteers. Now, I've volunteered through SOS for a long time, and there are a couple of other residents who do. And I understand the rationale for that in terms of insurance, but that was just too massive a hurdle for me to surmount. So I'm still hoping that we can find ways to do those things. Yeah, just looking for a little bit more. There's plenty of inspiration from Charles, but just a little bit more help in terms of, I know what the council's done is great, but I think they've also introduced some barriers to roads like Beaver Road, and that's something that I just wanted to point out, really.
Sorry. Thanks so much, Becky. Really good to hear from you. And I know that there's Anne Rivington in Gurney Way who's been working on ensuring that Gurney Way can take on the sort of approach that you want to take on in Beaver Road. So perhaps if we put you together. Now, I'm wondering who is Catch Up. Please do go ahead. You've got your hand up and ask a question. I think it might be. You're muted. The person with your hand up, please ask your question. We're dying to hear what it is.
Would that be me, do you think?
I think it is you.
Okay.
Thank you, Charles.
Right. Okay. So I'm not used to being called Catch Up.
No.
And I just wanted to say that when we got involved with doing what we have done at Ferry Path, I never heard of the Busy Bee or whatever it is. We were not required to have more than 50% of people being volunteers to pick up rubbish. Steve, Miranda and I, which is 3 out of however, did, because it means you get a free pair of gloves and a rubbish picker and plastic bags. So I don't know where this requirement for being half the street signed up. That's a mystery to me, but somebody else may know. Thank you.
I think the picking up, is that a county council project? Oh, Councillor Collis will be able to help us. Councillor Collis.
Yeah, so the Happy Bee Streets scheme comes under my portfolio, and as Becky mentioned, the reasons behind that requirement are insurance. It is insurance. So this is a new scheme. It's separate from the one you were talking about, Charles. So, I mean, yeah, that is the reason, because it's quite a requirement on residents. Some of the work that they have to do, it's quite involved, and we obviously need to, you know, be responsible for people, and part of that is ensuring that they're insured. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Collis. And you'd like to come back, Becky? You're on mute, Becky.
Thanks very much, Jocelyn. I just wanted to ask Alex whether other streets like Beaver Road, who applied kind of outside the pilot area, whether that 50% bar has been an obstacle for other streets, or has it not been a problem? That I find that that's interesting. I just like to know.
Am I okay to speak, Chair? Is that all right?
Please go ahead.
Yeah, so I think in some streets, Becky, it hasn't, because I know there are streets outside the pilot area that have signed up. I'm more than happy to go back to the team and ask them for some more detailed information on whether there are particular streets where it's been an issue. I don't have your contact details, but if you can email me at my council email address. That might be the easiest thing, and I'll happily follow that up for you. Thank you for the question. Thanks,
Councillor Collis. Now, why don't we move on to Lillian Rumblad on the Mayfield Green project, and we'll have a question or two, and then we can come back to some general questions before we conclude this part of the program. So over to you, Lillian. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Scott. And hello, everybody. When the Histon Road project was in the planning stage, a discussion began regarding the proposed chopping down of trees and reducing green verges and spaces, resulting in increased air and noise pollution, affecting the whole community. I met with Matt McGrath and checked the trees which have now been saved for the future. His knowledge of every tree was amazing. So at the same time, a project in the recreation ground using wildflower planting was started by Guy Belcher, and he joined me to, I'm sorry, I have difficulties reading. He joined me to investigate the Mayfield School Green with a view to some environmental upgrading. We were aware that the school children had already adopted trees in the green, but then came COVID. So a group of nearby residents had already successfully received a bench and some planters from the city council, and they maintained themselves in the area near the school reception. But then we discovered that there was a problem of ownership of the green and the verges. The green was private land and the verges were highway land. We applied to the highways an LHI for some more planters along the Carisbrook Road, with the assumption that the residents would be responsible for their upkeep. The application was not approved. So the officers had during this period successfully reached an agreement regarding the green. The land belongs to the Crown, Bona Vacancia, and the verges belong to the city council, but the city council has agreed to maintain the Crown land. And all the residents wanted the green to be easily accessible for the community and a safe way to school for the children. And after experiencing incidents of fly tipping on the green, the idea of upgrading this area to allow more biodiversity, but still with a possibility for picnics and was presented. So a new environmental group was formed after the elections, and at the meeting in situ was arranged with Councillor Todd Jones, the officers, and myself representing HRR. An EIP has been prepared by the officers and submitted to the council for review. And if approved, the construction is likely to take place in April 2023. So this is an extract from the application. There is an opportunity to improve biodiversity through a number of measures. And this may include invertebrates, wildflower banks, with the banks creating a wildflower seed bank, bee mounds, wildflower swaths under the trees, and in the central green space areas that could import more biodiversity and landscaping. This would improve biodiversity and the environment at the local level in this established community, and it's making increasing use of their green assets and address the climate emergency and help biodiversity. The project provides a chance for a local response and the balance between ease of maintenance and biodiversity improvements. So that was part of the application. Afterwards, now it is sent in to the environmental committee, I suppose. A consultation will also be carried out so all residents can participate and give their opinion. So we are very grateful that the officers have supported our local community in this project to enhance the green open spaces that has been an important asset since the 1960s. And I would like to end with never give up. It takes a long time. If you have not right the first time, use a different angle. Always look for other angles that you can proceed with your project.
Thanks so much.
Thank you. That was.
Thank you. Very much appreciated. Does anybody have a question specifically for Lillian? While people are thinking about it, I would just like to say I endorse what Lily Rundblad has said about persisting, and Becky's illustrating that, as has Charles, that if you do keep persisting, I know if I could give an example about WLO Lines and a local highways initiative that I put in for when I was representing Arbury as County Councillor for Arbury, and I put it in 3 times, and the 3rd time we got it because the residents were really determined that they wanted it, and many of them had been in contact. And when it went in the first time, it was down the list, it didn't get in, and then I put it back, and as I say, the 3rd time, and therefore I think it's really important not to give up. And now I see that Councillor Cox-Condren has a comment or a question. Yes, Councillor Cox-Condren.
Thank you. I just wondered, and maybe everybody knows about it, but I've just had a meeting, very short meeting about it recently, about the Police and Crime Safer Communities Fund as well, which can include improving the areas where there's fly tipping and antisocial behaviour. That's another funding stream that I'm having some more meetings about it coming up, actually, just having a meeting about that. So really happy to discuss other areas that in North Cambridge that may benefit from that, and try and put that forward too.
That is a different angle then. So yeah, I would appreciate to get informed about this project you have.
Yes, because what's interesting is that each of the residents has spoken about the desire to engage with biodiversity, but also that antisocial behaviour and fly tipping have been a real problem. So I think that's really important, Councillor Condren. Perhaps if Charles Hattersley and Becky, if you just come back on so that we can see you and Lillian, and then there may be questions that people would like to put to the 3 speakers before we say thank you for their presentations. Now, come on, Sam, you must have a question because you're our biodiversity person.
I've got a comment, if you like, if that might help kick something off.
Yes, please.
Okay. We recently around here noticed that the weeds were growing in the gullies along the street. And whilst we're not part of a pilot area for not having spraying pesticides and things, I've connected with Guy Belcher and one of his colleagues, Rob Marta, and we seem to have a disconnect between bits of the council, which perhaps is not surprising, that they've stopped spraying our streets, but nobody's told us. So we're now getting little forests growing along under the cars. So I asked them for a statement so that I could talk to my neighbours and say, you may have noticed this, and maybe we should just all go out with our shovels and clean it up and get rid of all the building rubble as well. But people will no doubt say to me, well, I'm not going to do that. So then will the council come and clean it up if we won't? So I'm wrestling with that one at the moment.
Thank you, Charles. I see that Councillor Carling has got his hand up, and then Becky had a question too about bee-friendly streets, and then I see that Councillor Dubkovic has got her hand up and Councillor Condren. So why don't we have Councillor Carling first, then we'll come to Becky, and then we'll go to our other two councillors. Councillor Carling.
Yeah, so thank you so much, Charles, Becky and Lillian, all for kind of coming and telling us about projects. It's been really brilliant to hear about it, and I've been really encouraged to hear about what's going on. I guess this is more of an open question to all three of you, but I just wondered, what more do you think we can do as councillors and as the council to support you in your projects, but also in encouraging other people to kind of spring up and take initiatives themselves and, do more things like this? What can we do? What more can we do?
Right, well, while Charles and Becky and Lillian are pondering on that, we'll come to Becky for the question about the bee-friendly streets.
No, Jocelyn, it wasn't a question. I've emailed Alex already with the data that I think would be useful for me, and I've just found Hillary's email address, and I'll just pop her a quick note. But in reply to Sam, I think it's things like this. I think where there are opportunities for you to invite residents to talk about these initiatives or these desires, then that's what's going to make a big difference. I think and what Charles is doing to publicise with Neighbourhood Watch and with other organisations what he's done, because it really is, it is inspirational. It's great. I know it's been a dry year, but in walking down there, even this spring, it was just such a joy. And last year, and it was just great, really beautiful. Charles.
Thank you. I think my comment would be that if the city council and the county council can make it less complicated to try and do things, as we've heard from Lillian, that it was necessary to sort of go around the block several times to get anything done. And yeah, that's life, I suppose, in a way. But having, for example, the people stop spraying the streets, and then you hear about that's only in certain areas, but then you realise that that's not the case because it's actually stopped in your area. So we need some fairly simple way of checking this sort of thing and or requesting it without having to get into long-winded discussions with your local councillor necessarily.
Yes, thank you. We're all now feeling very anxious about not being long-winded and speaking very briefly but engagingly. Right, over to Councillor Dubkovic.
I just want to second what Charles said earlier about the weeds. So if you find out what the result is and how they're going to deal with that, or if there's a natural way, dealing with the weeds without having to use pesticides or chemicals, let me know, because yeah, that issue is obviously arising in Arbury where they're piloting the scheme. And we went with Mike Todd Jones, we went to the Bermuda Flats, and the residents there were having issues with obviously growing weeds and the council not really doing anything about it. So we thought about community groups obviously coming to do it themselves, but it's not really fair. So, you know, if there is an alternative environmentally friendly way of doing it rather than just manually having to go and pick them up, I don't know whether you know of any other options. Yeah.
I know that Anne Rivington, who's from Gurney Way, whom I mentioned, is very keen on giving up on herbicides. And so she has all sorts of ideas about what to do about the weeds that grow in a way that can be dangerous on the footpaths. I know from what Councillor Bird has said that if weeds are growing up in bits of the footpath, it can make it difficult for wheelchairs to get along, and it would also be difficult for prams and buggies and so on. But there are often ways that weeds can look extraordinarily attractive, but on the other hand, there are also ways that one can deal with them without going to herbicides. But over to Councillor Cox-Condren.
Thank you very much. I was going to say one thing, but I'm going to say something ahead of that now, if I may. Just firstly, I think it's really important to have these testimonies. I think it's so helpful to us, and hopefully, you know, now that we have much more aligned, closer aligned city and county, we are working better together and finding those holes where we can really kind of throw things together and make things much clearer is really helpful, I think, to us all. The pesticide free, I'm also working with pesticide free Cambridge, as of course, you know, Alex is working very closely with them, and I'm working with them too. I'm also on the Board of Natural Cambridgeshire, and I'm going to be making some short little films with them about some successful schools and golf clubs in the area that have not been using pesticides at all. So I'm just going to do some short films there, and hopefully we'll be able to share some of that. They're also going to be with me on the 15th of October. This is a little 2-hour event that I'm doing that we're organising at Arbury Court Library, again with Alex and other, you know, the Arbury councillors, city councillors, but Pesticide Free Cambridge and On the Verge will be there, along with one of our Cambridgeshire Skills leaders who offers courses in horticulture and gardening for wellbeing. So he's going to be there to talk about the courses that they offer to residents as well for free. And if anybody else would like to join us for that sort of a community event, that would be wonderful. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Cox-Condren. Now I see that Councillor Collis has her hand up, Lillian Rundblad has hers up, and Becky Allen has hers up, but that may be a legacy hand. But we'll come to Councillor Collis first, and then to Councillor Rundblad. Councillor Collis, and then we should conclude. Yeah.
Thanks very much, Chair. Just very quickly about the alternative techniques and technologies for controlling weeds. That is all part of the Arbury and Newnham pesticide free trial, which again is in my portfolio area. So the whole, you know, sort of purpose behind that is to test alternative technologies, and the team are doing that. I'm not going to go through all the things they're sort of trialing, but that is a key consideration within that trial. So, you know, once that trial's concluded, that information will be provided. I also just wanted to draw attention to the fact that I have put a link to the weed spraying schedule in the chat, in the meeting chat. So that is the source of information on when and where streets will have been sprayed. It's updated at the beginning of every week, and then it's so with the plans for what is due to be sprayed that week. and then it is updated at the end of the week just to confirm what has been sprayed. We're sort of in between sprayings at the moment, so it is due an update. But if you want to check whether your street has been sprayed or is due to be sprayed, that is where you look. Thanks very much.
Oh, I'm muted. Lillian Runblad, please. And thank you, Councillor Collis.
Yeah, what really didn't come out in my report that I made was actually the nearness of the school and the school children. So we haven't really, as we don't know the sum that we eventually might get for the EIP we have applied for. But if we do, we will then ask if they can do something like bee hotels or do some engagement and various activities that they would like to improve the area. I don't think that really came out when I was reading the paper. So good cooperation with the school.
Yes, good. And I was thinking about maypole dancing on Mayfield Green. Yes,
yeah.
Good. Right, well, we better conclude this part of the program, and I'd like to say thank you so much to Lillian Runblad, to Becky Allen and to Charles Hattersley for coming along as residents and participating in this North Area Committee. It really is valuable to us to sit here as councillors and to learn what is going on in terms of resident initiatives, and also for others who are watching to know that resident initiatives are going forward and that they might like to take up the ideas or become engaged with those ideas that are on the way. And best of luck, Becky Allen, with your Beaver Road project. We'll cross our fingers and do what we can to help you to make sure that the Beaver Road project can go ahead. Thanks to you all. Thank you. Good.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you. And so now it's the time to move on to item 6 on the agenda, which is the Greater Cambridge Partnership Milton Road project update. And I believe that we have David Charlesworth and Thomas Porter from the Greater Cambridge Partnership attending for this part of the program. So over to you, David Charlesworth and Thomas Porter. Are you there?
I'm here.
Yes, I'm here as well.
Oh, good.
Thank you, Councillor. So I'm going to kick off this, and I don't know if David's going to add anything at the end, but yeah, I'm going to provide a brief update. This is the first of these meetings that I've attended, so I guess I'm unsure in the previous meetings how much has been discussed regarding Milton Road. So what I thought I'd do is just give a very brief sort of, not a history of the project, but very briefly sort of why we are where we are, and then I'll give an update on where we are with construction. So yeah, the project has been going for quite a few years, as you are aware. The real sort of purpose and the aim of the project is to improve the public transport, cycling and walking infrastructure, to make these sustainable travel options more attractive alternative than using a car, really, and encourage the continuing economic growth of Greater Cambridge. And the scheme starts from the Milton Road, the Mitcham's Corner end of Milton Road right up to the busway at the north. In terms of design, sort of the key aspects are around segregating the cycle paths, footpaths, and to have a verge in between. This will give much improved cycling pedestrian facilities. We're also looking at the bus lanes and trying to improve those and improve how they flow through Milton Road. Other than that, there is a whole new landscaping package that's going to be installed, new trees, swales to help with the drainage, new street lighting, new signage, new signals, and some new drainage throughout the length of Milton Road. So when complete, it should be it should look really nice. So yeah, in terms of progress, so we started on the 27th of June. with an enabling works package to begin with. This mainly consisted of some vegetation clearance along the eastern side of Milton Road. We did a bit of work at the far northern end of Milton Road outside the Science Park, which is still ongoing. We commenced a drainage, a water diversion, which is still in progress as well. And we took out some of the islands down the middle of Milton Road. The project has now entered into the sort of the main construction phase, if you want to call it that, with works progressing just north of Union Lane on the eastern side. So this has consisted of removing curbing, excavating for the swales and down to formation. So Milestone are making some good progress on site now, and they've ramped up quite a bit over the past few weeks. Some key things I wanted to mention tonight, which you may be aware of, that from next week, the 5th of September, there will be some road closures on Milton Road in the evenings. So this is to install all of the cones down Milton Road, and there will be some narrowing of the running lanes. This essentially provides the working space for Milestone to be able to carry out the works. At the moment, they're working sort of within the bus lane, but that doesn't give them enough space to effectively carry out the works. So that is the plan for next week, and it's running on over the 5 nights. As well as that, Woodhead Drive has been partially closed, and from next week it will be fully closed, and that is to finalise and finish the compound that we're putting in that location. Going forward then, so once all the cones are out and all the traffic management's on, etc., Milestone have then split the project into 3 sections. There's like a southern section, a middle section, and northern section. At the moment, just north of Union Lane, they're working in the middle section, but they will be working in all 3 sections at the same time. All on the eastern side to begin with, and then there's a sequence where they will progress round onto the western side. So yeah, that will be continuing in the coming months, and I can give further updates on the progress as we progress. So yeah, overall, the project is a 2-year sort of construction period. So we're looking at around a summer 2024 completion for the entire project. I was going to mention a little bit on comms. We are doing a great deal of comms, and David may want to add a bit more after I've finished. But yeah, we've done a great deal of comms, continuing to send out letter drops for the key items. The main sort of key things we've done so far are the start of works, the vegetation clearance, the road closures and Woodhead Drive, but we will continue to do that. We've met many of the residents along Milton Road, and we will continue to engage with them. We've employed a customer liaison officer, and she is available for members of the public to email in or phone in, and we can respond to any queries that there may be. Of course, there's social media, and we're putting together monthly newsletters and a wide variety of different methods to reach out to the public on the scheme. I think from my point, that was what I was going to update with. I'm happy to try and answer any questions. And yeah, that's everything I had. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Thomas. Thank you. And I know that Ruth Ewell had a question, I think, to ask in relation to the Milton Road project. Am I right on that? Yeah, perhaps if you go ahead then, Ruth. Yes.
Right. You do a lovely description of free running buses, but there has been talk locally of the busway from Cambridge North no longer stopping along Milton Road. but I still decided to try and use it when I had to get back from Hurst Park Avenue. And it picked me up at Asham Road a couple of weeks ago. As I got on, I remarked to the driver that I was pleased the bus had stopped. He told me that this wouldn't be the case for much longer, as from, he thought, September or October, the Busway B would be an express service and not stop on the Milton Road stops. He assured me the other service would continue at the 9 to Ely once an hour. As far as I can see, this means that the Milton Road stops are going to lose their connection to Cambridge North Station and really not have a very useful service at all. They can wave at the Park and Ride and the Busway buses as they sail down the bus lanes. May I add that in the past, I have actually got the bus to this appointment in Hurst Park Avenue, but this time, because I couldn't rely on the bus stopping, I had to get my husband to give me a lift. So there was a car journey quite unnecessarily. Anyway, I would like to know whether members of the committee or the representatives of the GCP have anything to say about the issue of actual buses serving Milton Road, please.
Thanks so much, Ruth. Could we just go to Councillor Bird, and then I'm not sure whether Lillian Rundblad has a hand up to ask a question about the Milton Road project, but if so, we'll take that and then we'll come back to Thomas. So Councillor Bird.
Thank you, Thomas. My concern is if you're going to be closing Milton Road, that means East Chesterton are going to have horrendous amount of traffic. We only have two ways out of East Chesterton. One's onto Chesterton Road and the other one's onto Milton Road. What are our residents supposed to do? It's going to be jam-packed with lorries, buses. Well, we want buses anyway, but cars, extra transport cars, everything. So I don't think it's a good idea completely closing Milton Road when you've got an area which has only got two ways of getting out. And if there was anything to happen, I don't know what would happen in East Chesterton.
Thank you, Councillor Bird. And now Lillian Rundblad, and then we'll come back to Thomas Porter. Lillian, I think, did you have a question about? You're on mute.
Yes, my question then is, of course, what you mentioned about road night works starting next week. Does that one follow the diversion road that goes down Histon Road from A14?
Right.
We have already have some comments there because houses are shaking, so we thought you had already started doing it.
Oh dear. And now I see that Councillor Gawthorpe, so why don't we let Thomas respond to these ones? It's about the buses from Ruth Yule. It's about the East Chesterton access from Councillor Bird, and then about the night diversions from Lillian Rundblad. Over to you, Thomas.
Thank you. Yeah, you've sort of frozen up on my screen. I hope you can still hear me.
Yes, we can. We can hear you.
Okay, good. Okay, so the bus is running along Milton Road. I guess there's two separate things, really. I think your question is more around Stagecoach and the bus operations, which is a little bit out of my hands. It's more with Stagecoach and that side of things. But I can approach them for a detailed response to your specific query. In terms of buses during the construction period, yes, we intend, of course, the buses to remain operational throughout that construction period. If at any point we need to close, which we will have to close a bus stop, an existing bus stop, then a temporary one will be available to be used. So I think there's two sides to that, but I don't think I can answer in detail your specific query about the the operation of the buses along Milton Road. If that's that one, shall I go on to the other two?
Yeah, please do. Yes.
Okay, I think the second one about the road closures. So the road closures are only in the evenings. So they're only starting for next week, and it's only for next week, for 5 nights next week. And they are commencing from 7 p.m. running through to 6 a.m. the following morning. So I think in terms of congestion, etc., I think we've tried to choose times when it would be least impactful on the network. But unfortunately, these closures are necessary to be able to set up the works in the proper way, to be able to give the space for Milestone to carry out the work. A diversion route has been put in, which I think I've gone nicely into the final question here. And the diversion route is along Histon Road. It goes up to the A14 and then back round. You sort of froze up halfway through your question. Was that the question around the diversion route, or was there more to the question? I sort of missed half of it.
Who are you asking?
You, Lillian. I think that.
Yeah, I saw. What I said was I thought they had already started because we're getting things already now. And I mean, you say lightly, I mean, it's nighttime, all nighttime through. We have lived for 2 years with that before, so we know exactly what is coming down.
All I can do is say that it's not throughout the project. So for this project, we're maintaining open traffic on Milton Road, albeit there are moments, i.e. next week, where we do have to have that closure in the evening. There may in the future be a few other moments. I can think of when we're resurfacing Milton Road, there are going to be periods when we have to close that to be able to do the resurfacing works. But we have really tried to limit them to the minimum possible for the scheme.
That's we are grateful for.
Good. Thank you, Thomas. And now we have Councillor Gawthorpe Wood, then Councillor Carling, and then Ruth Ewell would like to come back, and then we better close this part of the agenda. But thank you, Councillor Gawthorpe Wood.
Right. Well, following on from previous comments, one of the issues that we've had with the Milton Road project is that I think the communication, as you now start the project, does need to improve. We've had some problems that a lot of people in Woodhead Drive did not appear to know that the road was going to be closed. I'm obviously King's Hedges councillor. And what I would urge yourselves and for Milestone to do is to improve the frequency and type of communication. I mean, one way could be online meetings, as you did with the Histon Road project. The second thing is to make sure that letters get out early where there's a possibility, especially where you're going to be closing and where there's a possibility of it. Now, I know you said that there may be some cases where, you know, you have closures that you aren't anticipating at the moment. But I think the Woodhead Drive closure has been a case in point that really the communication does need improving. I can't remember when the last time was exactly that we had an online meeting with the Milton Road Residents Association, but I think it was early in the year, so a good while ago. Joss, you probably know, Councillor Scott, you're probably aware of that. And obviously my GCP officers here. So that's the first thing. I know that King's Hedges councillors have been invited to meet with Milestone and possibly yourselves from GCP on the 20th of September. Yeah. So I shall be attending that, at least for the first part. as a meeting later on. But can I just urge you to, keep communicating and improving it. And it did occur to me that if Stagecoach are saying that their routes are changing or stopping or whatever, perhaps we need to have Stagecoach to come to talk to this meeting, to the North Area Committee.
Thanks, Councillor Gorsrot-Wood. That's a good suggestion. Yes, we'll keep it on board. Just over to Councillor Carling, and then Ruth Yule, and then we'll come back to Thomas Porter. So, Councillor Carling.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to kind of echo some of the concerns that Ruth raised and that Councillor Gorsrot-Wood just touched on as well about the bus services. And I know it's kind of, we've got this awkward situation where it's a little bit of everybody's responsibility, but that's also leading to residents who have queries being bounced around. Stagecoach say, we'll talk to Milestone, Milestone say, we'll talk to Stagecoach. And it's really not clear to people who they need to contact with their issues. So it might be useful if we can have some kind of resource put together that clarifies that in some way. And kind of what I'm really worried about is a lot of the bus stops on Milton Road suddenly closing without warning. And especially as we go into winter, people just kind of stood at cold bus stops, not knowing when the next bus is going to show up. And we have to remember that a lot of the residents that make use of the buses on Milton Road may be elderly, may have mobility issues, and nothing's really being done. And I'm just getting really concerned about this. One thing which I think would be really helpful if it were possible would be to have some kind of advance work schedule, if possible, so we can look in advance at when certain bus stops are going to close, even if it is, rough and approximate, because obviously things happen with these works that you can't predict. But if we could have some kind of advance notice online as well, that would be really useful, because at the moment, just a sign at the bus stop 7 days before it closes, people might not use the buses in the 7 days before they close. It's just, there's a lot kind of needs to be done here to make sure that this is a dependable system going into winter. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Carling. Yeah, if I could quickly say, I was on the number 1 and it went whizzing past the stop that's just past that co-op on the first one that comes on Milton Road as the number 1 goes around that the gyratory. And then it went whizzing around the corner. Unfortunately, it did just stop round the corner, but it was just such a shock that it wasn't stopping where I was accustomed. I know that we should all be keen about change and excited about change and so on. And so it is really rather ridiculous of me to say that I had the terrible shock about going around the corner and having to get off near the that excrescence on the corner there. But that was a local experience. But to Ruth Yule, your question, back to you.
I was just going to point out that the Westbrook Centre stop has already been suspended. And I was on the bus one Saturday morning. I was going into central Cambridge, so I was all right. But there was a couple, it had been stopping as people rang the bell along Milton Road. It was being used, this service. This couple went to get off at the Westbrook Centre, and the driver said, "No, I'm not stopping there. The next stop is Central Cambridge," which, as you know, is right down Victoria Avenue. It's a heck of a walk. He hadn't even told them about it when he stopped at the stop before. So the service to bus passengers is already abominable before they start listening to villagers who are apparently complaining that the bus stops on the way. So it's got to be an express. It's never been an express between St Ives and Huntingdon, but suddenly it has to be an express into Cambridge. There we are. I don't know what members think, but please do get some sense out of Stagecoach and get us some buses that actually run and stop.
I think that Thomas is going to have difficulty answering for Stagecoach, but I think Councillor Gorsrot-Wood's idea is very good, that we must get Stagecoach along to North Area Committee. But now we did need to stop on this point, but I can just see that Councillor Tatala-Varkey hasn't asked anything. So if we come to Councillor Tatala-Varkey, and then I think Councillor Gorsrot-Wood want to come back with a very short issue, and then we'll come back to Thomas. So Councillor Beju.
Yeah, Thomas, I endorse what Ruth has said. I am a victim of this. The Westbrooks and Westhope was suspended. And if you were to say that we always do some sort of a substitute arrangements, nothing in place. That's true. And I just want to say this. That is what you said. We will offer a substitute Westhope, which you did not. And now you cannot claim that you will. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Gawthorpe Wood, did you, well, you've completed, I think. So it's,
sorry, very quickly. What will happen in terms of increased traffic along King's Hedges Road? Because I know this is a concern for residents, an existing concern, but this may get a lot worse with the MRR project. If you could provide an estimate of what will happen. Thank you.
Thank you. So, Thomas Porter, if you, the first issue was about the communication and the need to improve the communication, and then we've really been concentrating on buses and then on King's Hedges Road and what will be happening there in terms of increased traffic and diversions. Thank you.
Yeah, I've got a few notes, so hopefully I won't miss anything in the responses. So in terms of communication, yeah, thank you for the feedback. I think we always look to improve, and any feedback is welcome. And I think we've had some feedback already previously. I would say that we have got quite a bit of resource in play for communications on the Milton Road project, and we are still planning on doing a few additional bits and pieces that are getting up and running at the moment. One thing is a sort of a public drop-in centre that we're trying to set up on site, and I think that will help in terms of there's a physical place where members of the public can come to once or twice a week, something like that. We're still sorting the arrangements with Milestone to ask whatever questions they may have about the scheme. There'll be suitable representation from Milestone, and I can attend on some of the occasions to answer the questions. So I think that will help as well. And then yes, I can take this away and discuss with David if there's any other further additional measures that we can do as well. In terms of, so there's quite a few questions around the buses and Stagecoach. So I made a few notes here, trying to get to the first one. So I think from Councillor Carling, I think that your idea around an advanced work schedule and maybe put something online, I think is a very good idea. And I will certainly take that away and discuss with Milestone to see if we can put something together. I guess what I have to sort of caveat that with is that there's always, with these type of projects, the risk that something may change, that we have to change our plan. And so we may be concerned putting specific sort of dates online in case we have to change our plan for whatever reason. But I do think it's a good idea to put something online to say sort of by around these dates or something like that, where we can say this bus stop will be closed and there'll be an alternative put here or there. And then there was some questions around the Westbrook Drive. So I can sort of give a bit more detail on this, which I think will answer both Ruth and Councillor Titala. That so when we commenced work outside Westbrook Drive, we did actually provide an alternative stop location. And what happened was that Stagecoach decided to suspend that stop because of safety reasons for disabled passengers getting on and off the bus. But what we then did was essentially try and complete the works as quickly as we could in that location to reopen the bus stops. So that is really what happened. It is not our intention to suspend any of the bus stops. So going forward, I have already spoken to Milestone about ensuring there's an alternative bus stop, temporary bus stop location, and also to Stagecoach expressing the need that we don't want to suspend any of the bus stops. So I think potentially that covered off everything, maybe, unless I've missed something.
King's Hedges Road.
Yes, King's Hedges. Yes. I wasn't sure if you meant during the construction period or once the project is complete. What I can say during the construction period, yes, there will be some traffic management on at that location during the project. What I've spoken to Milestone about is how we can manage the situation on site if the traffic is increasing. And what they've said to me is that we can change the phasing of the lights, the temporary lights at King's Hedges to relieve that pressure. So really, I'm keen to have that kind of safety net, if you want to call it that, where we can be reactive and say, right, the traffic is building up. Let's look at those signals. What can we do quickly to relieve that? And it isn't just at the King's Hedges. I think it's the same as well down at Union Lane and Arby Road, that we will need to do the same sort of management of those traffic lights as well.
Thanks so much, Thomas. I know there are other people with hands up, but I think we'd better stop at that point and just say thank you very much. And I did want to ask, David, did you have any final short points that you'd like to make, or are you happy with the way that we've covered Milton Road project? David is the...
Yeah, no, I'm happy. Thomas has really covered everything. We will continue to use social media and the monthly update to update people. The website will be kept up to date, and as Thomas set out, we'll do proactive comms around road closures. But there's some useful feedback from councillors tonight that we'll go away and talk to the team about. So thanks for your time and interest in the project. Thank you.
Thanks so much, David Charlesworth and Thomas Porter. We appreciate your coming from Greater Cambridge Partnership on the Milton Road project. So thank you. And so now I was going to ask, would people like a short, say, 5-minute break, or are we happy to go on? The next item on the agenda is the open forum, and there are several issues that people wanted to raise during that period. I'm happy to keep going on, but if people would prefer a break, yes, people would like a break. So why don't we have a break? It's now 10 minutes past 8. So maybe if we come back, is 5 minutes sufficient? Yes, I see nodding. So we'll come back at 8:15. Thank you. And agenda, which is the open forum. And I'm hoping that Marina Bush is on the call. Marina, are you there? Oh, what a pity, because Marina Bush was intending to come to speak about the Arbury Carnival or festival. Perhaps if I'll just say very briefly, and we can invite Marina to come back to the next North Area Committee meeting. But the Arbury Festival, as others know who are councillors and residents, is a really exciting celebration that we have on an annual basis in Cambridge, in Arbury, and Marina Bush is a member of the Arbury Carnival Festival, and we wanted to have her speak about the importance of people joining the committee so that the committee can continue doing its very good work. Now, I see that Sue Barker, you had your hand up, and I'm wondering if you wish to speak about the Arbury Festival or whether you had another point that you'd like to make about another issue in the public forum.
No, I'm part of the Arbury Carnival Committee, but I see Marina Bush is on, so I'll let her do the talking.
Oh, lovely. Thanks so much. Yeah, I should have actually had I couldn't see it on my people list, but wonderful to have you, Marina. So perhaps if you'd like to talk about the Arbury Festival and how we all might join in to give support, but also residents out there might become involved in the committee. So over to you. Thank you. I think you're on mute. It's quite funny. That's really odd because it did seem that you were on. Perhaps if you go out and come back in again, Marina, because sometimes that helps. Yeah. Yes. Perhaps while we're waiting for Marina to come back, I'm wondering, Councillor Richard Swift, are you there? Because I believe that you wanted to make a short announcement about the Mitcham's Corner project that we're hoping to revive. Councillor.
Oh, yes. Can you hear me, Jocelyn?
Absolutely. Yes, you go ahead, Richard. Councillor Swift.
On this Saturday at 4 o'clock in Milton Road Library in Asham Road, there's going to be a meeting, a public meeting, to try and get the Mitcham's Corner improvement reconvened and up and running, with a view to actually getting a workable scheme based on the 2018 Mitcham's Corner development framework, actually modifying that to take into account all of the different things that have happened to Cambridge and the world since 2018, in particular the climate emergency, and the recalibration of pedestrians and cyclists above motorists and lorries, and all sorts of other things to try and actually get a workable package constructed for the funding rounds in about 2 years' time, so that when the Milton Road redevelopment is finished, then we can actually realistically have a workable scheme for doing the funding rounds to implement and extend Milton Road into Mitcham's Corner. For 27 years, I've been cycling around Mitcham's Corner. It's always been a nightmare. There's been lots and lots of talk over decades about what to do with it. And the 2018 settlement, which wasn't in the end actually enacted, I don't know quite why. Councillor Scott, you might know why it was not actually put into practice. But we were thinking of using that as the basis for new discussions to work on, and to actually, essentially what it amounts to is actually getting rid of the 1960s racetrack plan of the Mitcham's Corner and actually reconstituting a north-south road, Milton Road, Chesterton Road, Victoria Avenue, and an east-west Chesterton Road two-way, the entire length is two-way, and then actually having space for housing on the Staples site, housing on the Barclays Bank, housing on the Mitcham's Corner, and a public park or plaza between the Lloyds Bank, which could become a cafe, and put the Portland Arms. So it could be a very exciting project that could vastly improve a whole section, whole bottleneck of Cambridge, and make it somewhere that people want to go and to meet other people and to relax and to a social type centre rather than just a racetrack. So if any of you are around on Saturday at 4 o'clock till 6 o'clock, please come along to the public meeting at Milton Road Library on Asham Road. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Richard. Now, did you have a question on this issue, Councillor Shield, or was it another point? Because we'll come to Marina Bush, unless yours was relating to Mitcham's Corner.
A quick Mitcham's Corner point. Yeah. I hope you're only joking about getting rid of the Lloyds and turning it into a cafe, because all the senior citizens in Victoria Homes love being able to walk down to that Lloyds Bank.
Right, okay.
I think actually that really is a very good point, because local banks are disappearing everywhere, and it's highly foolish, in my opinion, of banks to do that. And it's true. People want to be able to walk to the bank. Thank you, Patrick, and thank you both Councillor Shield and Councillor Swift. And now over to Marina Bush and the Arbory. I'm not sure whether it's a carnival or a festival or a fair, but whatever it is, it's really a lot of fun. So over to you.
Okay, can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Thank goodness. Okay, well, thank you for inviting us to speak about it's Arbory Carnival. So for those who don't know, Arbory Carnival is an annual community festival that's been running since the Queen's Jubilee in 1977. It's run entirely on volunteers, and we have a small committee who have key roles in organising the carnival. It's hugely popular. It attracts between 3,000 and 4,000 attendees each year that it's run. We have an arena where we have different kinds of acts that perform, so music acts, dance acts, and other artists. We have a procession that comes through the neighbourhood of King's Hedges, and then a variety of different stalls on the green next to the community centre. In the last few years, we have really struggled to recruit new members, both on the committee and also to get volunteers and stewards to help out on the day. So I suppose today I'm just trying to find out what, if anything, the councillors and residents who are attending can do to help us, and how we might promote the carnival and get more people interested in joining to help organise it, so we can keep running it. This year, after 2 years of COVID, although we didn't have the carnival in real life, we still managed to run a virtual carnival. We still had participation from local schools and other organisations. But this year, after running it the first time in person after the COVID, after lockdown, we did it on kind of a skeleton committee. I think there were only about 6 of us to organise it. And it was a struggle. And I think there is a real danger that if we don't get more people both on the committee and helping out leading up to the event and on the day, there's a real danger that it won't run again. And I think that would be a real shame. So I'm just here to see what you can offer or what can be done to help get us more support for doing that. Thank you.
Good. Thanks so much, Marina. Councillor Cox-Condren. Yes, please.
Thank you. I wasn't meaning to jump in too quickly there, but I got a little bit excited because firstly, I love the the carnival, and I also work as a community artist, and I've been involved in the carnival in working with the schools for quite a few years, and various carnivals, and I would love to chat to you more about that and see how I can support it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. So does anybody else have ideas about how we might, oh good, yes, Councillor Gawthorpe Wood.
So this is a question rather than an idea, I'm afraid, or suggestion. I mean, are you really looking for people on the committee to help, or new people to join the committee, or are you looking for grants, or both? And which are the priorities? And if you could just sort of say maybe what people need, what's the expectation of people on the committee and volunteers? Thank you.
Okay, yeah, so we're looking for both. So this year we will need to apply for a grant because we've used up our funds. We're also looking for people to join the committee. So we've had a few people who have resigned from the committee this year. So, and there are a variety of roles that people can take. Some are more, more involved than others, but we need people to do things like logistics, which is organizing very practical things on the day, like portaloos, bins, helping to kind of mark out the green on the day. We need people to help with admin duties, like help with booking stalls. So people who want to run a stall on the day, helping to organize sending out the applications for that. I think we've got somebody who's stepped in to help with finance and treasury duties, but we just need more people because each one of these roles, it's more than one person can handle. It's more, it's more work than one person can do. So we need extra help with things. So there are both specific roles that people can take on, and there's also kind of supportive roles that people can do where they can dip in and out and just help out with things as and when they can.
Thank you. And Sue Barker is wanting to make a contribution here, I think.
Yes, also with the logistics, it's sorting out the legal side of things like insurance, things like booking the green, the venue, and I've lost my chain of thread now, but it is we meet once a month in 6 months leading up to the carnival, and then we meet more frequently as we're going into May and June and July, and then the week of the carnival. It's pretty much every day we have some sort of communication. A lot of it is communication with people, a lot of it is emailing, just making sure things are in place so that the public are safe, that the entertainment is there. The stalls also provide a lot of income for the little organisations, and they find that the income that they get from the stalls keeps them going for the rest of the year. So it's quite heavily an advantage for the communication for the community to keep this going.
Yes, good. Now, does anybody else want to make a contribution here, or are we happy to leave the matter at that point, to know that we've raised it here, and perhaps we can all think about the possibilities of ways that we can support the Arbury Carnival, which really must be able to keep going ahead. If I could just oh yes, Councillor Cox-Condren, please come back.
Thank you. I'll make it brief, Chair. Thank you. I just wondered whether or not you were working with Akua Obeng Frimpong, who is the arts director, lead arts officer at City Council, who is a fantastic support for events and insurance and being able to get the word out and bringing communities together. Should be a really good contact if you're not in contact.
Good. So, Marina, did you have any summing up remarks that you'd like to make for us to you know, make sure that we remain on the ball and that we all do come up
Yes,
with ideas.
yeah, thank you, Hilary, for that. It would be good if you were able to put that name in the chat, and then I can make a note of that and get in touch. We do work closely with Kettle's Yard, and this year we had an installation at the Museum of Cambridge. So the Museum of Cambridge did a couple of community events for us, and had some of the schools and children coming in to make a banner for this year's carnival because it was the Jubilee theme. So we do work with other partners. The other thing that I wanted to mention is that we have organised a meeting, an in-person meeting, on the 25th of September to take place at Nuns Way Pavilion at 3 p.m. And this will be a meeting to, again, to try and recruit new members, volunteers, anybody who wants to get involved in any kind of way, so they can come along and find out a bit more information about what's involved. So if you're able to promote that to the local community when you come into contact with them, that would be really, really helpful. And we'd really appreciate your support with this.
Thanks so much, Marina.
Thank
and
you.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you very much for coming. That's really appreciated. Oh, now, Councillor Collis, is yours on as a wrap up on? Yes, good. Go ahead. Arbury Carnival.
Not a wrap up. It's just a comment, Marina. I'm sure you're in touch with Dave at the Good Shepherd on various things. I just wonder whether going along to the food hub and community cafe there on a Tuesday morning, if there's anyone that can do that, would be a good idea, because you might well pick up some volunteers that way. It's 10 till 12, isn't it, Hilary? Does it start at 10? Yeah, starts at 10. Lovely, thanks.
Thank you, Alex. Yeah, I'll make my way along to that. Thanks very much.
Good. Yes, well, thank you again, Marina. Appreciated. Good. And so we're still in the open forum, and I know that there are two members of the community who have questions. We've got a question from Nin Bickerton about the Mayfield School and what's happening at the Mayfield School. And we also have a question from Doug White. So may I hand over to you, Nin Bickerton? Let's hope Nin Bickerton's on the Teams. Yes, you are. That's good. Please go ahead.
Hi there. Well, we're just sort of slightly concerned that the travellers appear to have returned to the Mayfield School site a couple of months after they left. Just wondering what progress has been made to prevent this happening in future. The whole thing's not ideal, really. We're trying to let our flat, and we've got a bunch of caravans down at the end of the road. Again, only 2 months after they'd left previously. People, a Portaloo arrived today for them. I'm not quite sure whether the council paid for that, but I'm not sure whether that's sort of accommodating people or whether that's, I mean, obviously from a clear up point of view, that's preferable to defecation in hedges, which we had the last time they were there. I think the residents are fairly concerned that it's happened again in a very short space of time, and it's presumably going to cost the council as much money to clear up litter, clear up mess afterwards, administer to the whole thing, as it would have been to have put in some preventative measures in the first place. Obviously, funding is an issue. I do understand that processes have to be followed, but there's a general feeling within the community of irritation that nothing's happened and we've got the same problem again.
Right. Now I can see that both Councillor Collis and Councillor Cox-Condren would like to come back to respond to your question and issue, Nin. So please, Councillor Collis, then Councillor Cox-Condren.
Thanks, and thanks for the question. And yeah, I totally understand the concern. I'm replying on behalf of, so I have responsibility for traveller encampments from an open spaces point of view, and I've also spoken to Councillor Healy, who leads on our GRT work, just to check with her sort of where we are on certain bits of work. So regarding the Portaloo, yes, that came from us. We have to put things like that in because, as you say, it's preferable to not having it there. So that is supplied and paid for by the council. So with regard to the current encampment, our officers went, I believe, yesterday and did a welfare visit, which is the first step that we have to take as part of any enforcement action. So we have to go along and we have to ask whether there are any welfare needs like water or sanitation, anything like that. We also, our officers will speak to whichever group it is and try and find out their intentions on how long they'll be staying. So that has happened. It is very likely that we're going to we'll be taking enforcement action against the group to get them to move on. So part of that is seeking a court ruling, as we've done previously. That can take up to 14 days. It does often happen much quicker than that. So that's sort of where we are with that group at the moment. In terms of more sort of longer term measures, I sort of take your point that there is a cycle of this happening. It's actually, well, it's throughout the city. I believe it is the same group that has just moved from Arbury Town Park. So we have the issue in King's Hedges as well. So at the moment, I mean, the main long-term solution that we've got and that I think is needed, and actually travellers themselves have told us this is what is needed, is identifying negotiated stopping sites. So that is what we're doing at the moment.
Is there not one in Cambridge anyway?
So no, as I was saying, we're looking into trying to identify a negotiated stopping site because we don't have one.
Right.
Because there are none within Cambridge City. Now, it is unlikely, well, the City Council does not own land that is suitable for this. So we have to work with partners on this. So we have a cross-authority working group. So that involves us, it involves the County Council, it involves South Cambs as well. I know Councillor Cox-Condren has been involved as well. We're also looking at the feasibility of using park and ride sites for these purposes. They're kind of ideal in a way because they're already set up with shower and toilet facilities and they have the space. I mean, that work is still ongoing. It is not, there is no easy solution to this, but I think, the most beneficial solution long term is going to be finding a stopping site for people. It's what they've told us they want and they need. And that's certainly sort of the direction that work is going in. I don't know if Councillor Cox-Condren, if you've got anything to add to that, because I know you've been involved too.
I mean, you really covered so much of it there, Alex. Thank you. So really, just to add that, as we heard from Lillian earlier as well about the environmental improvement plan that's going on, that's been put, the bid for that's been put forward to improve that area. And we can also work with the police commissioner to look at how we may be able to get funding. So part of that was about who owned the land, I believe, wasn't it, Councillor Collis? And so that's been established now that that some work can happen on that piece of land. And just also, reiterating that now we're joint administration at county, that communication across all the councils is much easier now to be sorting out the traveller transit sites that need to happen. Do you know what I mean? It needs to be a double pronged action, doesn't it?
But the EIP programme, I mean, yes, there is an EIP bid going in for that site, which is great, but that is separate from traveller issues. We don't use EIP bids as traveller, as anti-traveller measures. They're completely separate.
apologies for saying that, but when we were talking about it, that's entirely my fault, because when Lillian was talking about it, I also said about the antisocial behaviour bids that we may be able to go for, which are environmental improvement plans there too, and you know, very happy to come out and chat more about that and how that could work too.
We do appreciate the fact that people do need somewhere to go and that there should be a traveller site, but you know, at the end of the day, we've got several caravans, transit vans, cars, there's rubbish strewn around the place, and you know, we're about 3 weeks off trying to let our flat, and people are going to drive down the road, take one look and go, bloody hell, we're going to have all our bikes nicked. It's going to be a nightmare. I don't wish to be prejudiced or rude. And not rent the flat, you know. It'd be nice to know that there were some sort of steps to prevent. You know, bang on and get something sorted for them to go to, but also we'd like to prevent them coming back here if at all possible. You know, we've had washing machines piled up, 30 or 40 washing machines. There's been litter, there's been parties, there's been noise at 6 o'clock in the morning on a Sunday, you know, massive radios going. It's been pretty antisocial and pretty unpleasant, and you know, it's happened again within the space of 2 months.
Good. I can see that Ramsey Farragher has a hand up and Councillor Bird. So perhaps if Ramsey and then Councillor Bird, please.
Thank you very much. Just a very quick question. The encampment has returned exactly 100 days after it left, which is an interesting round number. I was wondering if that's what was written on their eviction notice, and if that's the case, would this eviction notice have a much larger number on it for the do not return figure?
Thanks, Ramsey, and we'll have Councillor Jerry Bird, and then if one of our other councillors is able to come back on the point that Ramsey just raised. Councillor Bird.
Thank you, Chair. I do understand where you're coming from about the travellers. We are working very, very hard with other councils to see which bit of land we can get. A lot of the times when they come to Cambridge, it may be for a hospital appointment or something. So that's why we're trying to find somewhere safe for them. I mean, I think every single ward in Cambridge has had the same problem, but they do have a rights as well. And we have to look at their rights. So yes, the park and rides would be great, and we've got plenty around the city that if they are coming for a hospital appointment, they can go to the one at the south of the city. So there is a lot to think about, but we are trying to do something about this. Okay, thank you, Chair. You're on mute, Jocelyn.
I know, sorry, so sorry. Councillor Collis, over to you.
Yeah, it was just a quick answer to Ramsey's question. Yes, 100 days is the legal limit, and groups will be well aware of that, because, you know, just like neighbours have been through this process several times, so have they. So yes, that is the time limit. That, unfortunately, that is the sort of time limit that is available to us within the law. So without a change in national legislation, there isn't a legal option to extend that currently, I'm afraid, which is why we find ourselves going through this process, you know, with such regularity. I'm really sorry, but that is the only legal option available to us. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Collis. Now, I think that it's time that if we ask Doug White, but Doug, your question, I think you wanted to ask about the Buchan Street building of the homes. Yes.
Yeah, I live in Callender Close, which is quite close to the development. It's just round the corner.
And I was just wondering whether anybody could shed some light on when the development might start. And I think the people that are directly opposite the development, which is probably within about 15 feet, are quite concerned, because there's about 8 houses that are really close. So if they're going to do a lot of building work, you know, which is what they're saying to me, you know, is it going to impact on my quality of life and so forth? And if it is, how long, and who do I talk to, and all these questions I'm getting. So I just thought I would ask the councillors if anybody could shed some light onto it for me, so I could give some answers to my residents.
Good. I think Councillor Collis will come back on this one too. Councillor Collis.
Yeah, and apologies, Doug. I know you emailed me after the ward meeting earlier this week. I haven't had a chance to respond. So I checked the answer on this for you. So basically, the whole of the Meadows and Buchan Street development is being done in like 4 basic phases. And the first phase is construction of Block C and the new Meadows building. That's phase 1. So no work is going to happen at Buchan Street, which is sort of part of the later phases, until phase 1 is complete. So we expect the new community hub and accommodation Block C to be finished in autumn of this year. Obviously autumn is quite a broad, you know, that could be several months, but it will be towards the latter end of that. So no work will start until that is complete, because obviously we can't start work. We promised we wouldn't demolish the existing Buchan Street until there was a new community centre in place, because we don't want to leave the area without anywhere. So it's due to start autumn 2022, and it's due to complete in summer 2024. It will be the same deal as we have with residents around St Albans Rec in terms of like any issues with the construction. So there will always be a liaison person in the within the construction company within Hill, who people can talk to and raise any issues with. And we will certainly be making sure that we keep residents, particularly those residents who live really close to the site, sort of fully informed of when things are going to be happening, when work's starting, how long it's likely to take, if there's going to be any particularly noisy work. Obviously we have to be a considerate contractor, so we can't, you know, we don't do work outside certain hours. So there will be a liaison number. I will ask officers if we have that person in place. I would imagine it will very possibly be the same person as is responsible for the Meadows build as well, but I will check, and if I can find out who it is, I'll let you know. And you're sort of, well, you know, I'm sure it would be fine for you to spread the word among your neighbours. It just sounds like people might need a bit of reassurance before we get started in the autumn. Is that okay? Lovely. Thanks, Doug.
Just a minute. Yeah, that's fine. Thank you very, very much. Thank you.
Thank you. So this is actually, we're coming towards the end of North Area Committee. Now I see, Nin, you've got your hand up. Did you want to ask a bit more about the issue that you've raised, or is that an ancient hand?
Hi there. Yeah, no, just one other quick thing. We've been discussing various bits of green and environmental bits and pieces. We're on Chatsworth Avenue, and we've been looking after 4 saplings that have been planted within the last couple of years, I guess. Quite a lot of them seem to be dying as we walk the dogs around locally. There doesn't seem to be any watering of them going on by the council. I'm just not sure that there shouldn't be some sort of drought awareness and, you know, looking after what's already been, money's been spent on trees and so on, and you know, just having an eye on drought and weather going forwards with planting of, you know, wildflowers, etc.
Or planters.
Or planters. So yeah.
Good. Councillor Collis.
Thank you, Chair. Sorry, that's me as well. Could you So I will talk to the tree team and find out about those trees on Chatsworth Avenue. Find out whether there are trees, whether there's, you know, whether they were planted by us, whether they're someone else's. They're pretty good at responding quickly, the tree teams. I should be able to get someone to look at them fairly quickly. Other ideas about sort of planting, would you mind emailing me and letting me know any ideas? And I'm more than happy to put you in touch with the relevant teams. You know, they'd be really, Guy Belcher and Rob Marter are always really happy to talk about stuff like that. So, and Rob particularly will come out and look at things, I'm sure. So if you give me an email at my council email address, I'll put you in touch.
Fabulous, that's great, thank you.
No problems.
You got that?
And Councillor Cox-Condren.
Thank you. Just quickly, so with some, you know, with this in mind, city and council county working together recently got a water butt put at Arbury Court Library, and with some of the grants that city are doing, some of the funding, I think that that there's opportunities to possibly put in funding bids for water butts, and very much there's been a lot of call outs for communities to water trees, especially when we've had this, you know, exceptional drought. So I know, you know, there's a lot of that's been happening recently, hasn't it? But we love our water butt in Arbury Court. That's what I wanted to say.
I know that with Histon Road, the Greater Cambridge Partnership, of course, put in a number of trees along Histon Road in the context of the project, and they went up, some of the officers from the Greater Cambridge Partnership, and did a walk all along Histon Road, it must be a week ago, to check on all the trees and to make sure that they were looked after and cared for. And what they said was that a number of the residents had actually been watering the trees. That was number one. Number two, I think that there are 2 trees that have died and that they are unfortunately beyond saving, but the other trees are fine. And what apparently happens during times like this is a tree might look as if it's died, but it actually is still alive, and what it's doing is conserving its energy, and that's why the leaves look as if they're not alive, but it's the conservation of the energy that the tree is engaged in, because nature is wonderful when we come to the point and is able to conserve in ways that we actually don't recognise. So, but the Histon Road trees are being looked after. Lillian Runblad, I think you want to come back on this point.
Yes, in particular, because I guess that was the audit that you were taking part in. The trees, there are more than 3. There are about 5 or 6 trees that are very poor condition. The contract with the landscaping group will run out this month. And what precautions have them then made for other people to take over? We don't know that yet, because the contract with the landscapers was included in actually the GCP Histon Road project. The same Aikman Street and the plants there, watering them. The audit people said they were going to look into having someone watering every month or maintaining those every month. But of course, there must be someone new contract they had to raise.
Right, well, we'll have to take this on board, and all I know is that they did look at the trees and they were intent on ensuring that the trees be properly cared for insofar as it was possible. But I think that we're at the end of our North Area Committee meeting because it's almost 9 o'clock, and I just wanted to, the last item on the agenda is the committee action sheet, which we just have to note. That's the action sheet that we have for issues that we've all raised as councillors or that residents have raised with us. So if any councillor has a comment to make on the action sheet that she or he wants us to realise that the issue has been fixed up, sorry, it has been concluded, then we'll speak now and we can note that on the minutes. But if not, then we'll just note that the committee action sheet is there for us to take action in relation to the items on it as time goes forward. And I see Councillor Gawthrop, you've got a question or an issue to raise at this point, and then I think that will be the end of the meeting because it will be 9 o'clock. Councillor Gawthrop.
Just on the action sheet, my query on knife crime in King's Hedges, I have had a response from the police. It's actually so, you know, as a statistician, I'd say, well, the number is so low that you can't make anything of it. And it's on the knife crime, but I would like to see these figures shown over time in the future, but at a future meeting where we have the police attending. Thank you.
Right. Could you just actually read out what that point is so that we're all clear, Councillor Gawthrop?
Okay, so this is minute reference 2022/12/NAC, policing and safer neighbourhoods. The action would provide a written response to Councillor Gawthrop Wood, how knife crime in King's Hedges ward compared to other North Area Committee wards, and the lead is Sergeant Ems. The response has been received now. Thank you.
Oh, good. Thanks so much, Councillor Gawthrop. So are there any final points that we'd like to make, or are we happy to conclude now because it's actually 8:57? So if there's anybody who wants to make a final comment, it needs to be sharp. I don't mean sharp as in negative sharp. I just mean sharp as in concise and succinct.
Chair.
Yes.
Sorry, Chair. Richard Swift, Councillor Richard Swift wants to talk.
Oh, right. Sorry, I couldn't see
Sorry,
his.
I can't get my hand thing to work. It's just I've noticed, I don't know if anyone else has noticed, but there's a lot of young people on electric scooters going round with sort of Go Puff and food pizza type things. And they've got masks over their face and dark glasses and helmets, and you can't see who on earth they are. And I'm fairly sure, although it's just circumstantial and suspicion, that they could be sort of county lines, and they have no number plates. You can't see who they are in any CCTV cameras, and it could be an enormous, when we're walking each evening, there's literally about a dozen of these people going around on their scooters in West Chesterton alone. So I don't know if anyone else has noticed that, or whether the police have actually made any connection between this enormous increase in the last few months in people wearing black masks over their faces, dark glasses and helmets, so you can't see who they are, purportedly taking pizzas round, but there must be more pizzas in West Chesterton than the whole of Naples. Sorry, I just thought I'd make that point.
Thank you. And so that's then an item that we can put on the agenda when we next have the police at North Area Committee. So, yes, Councillor Gawthrop Wood.
I had expected one of the King's Hedges residents to have raised an issue he has in open forum. It was touched on with the GCP report on Milton Road. There is an issue about traffic speeds and speeding in King's Hedges Road, and it's something that Elisa Meschini was raising, as had put in for a traffic improvement. So it's something that maybe could come up for a future meeting. I don't want to raise it now.
Right. Thank you. Well, I think that on that note, that we've got a number of items that we need to bring forward to North Area Committee next time we meet, and also the proposal that we ask somebody from Stagecoach to come along and so that we can quiz them about what's happening. But I'd like to say thank you very much to everybody for attending, to all the councillors and all the members of the public, and to those who made presentations in our section from the residents item. And so next time at North Area Committee, we'll have another residents item, perhaps on music and contributions that North Area residents are making in music or in art. We'll have a think about what particular topic we can have as the residents' contribution to North Area Committee. So thank you very much, everybody. And we can close at this point. And thank you very much to James Goddard and also to our technical team. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Bye.